All right, at no surprise to pretty much anybody here, Massachusetts, we're in a decline. And that's not some political slogan. That's based on real data. Because while the Commonwealth and their elites, they just keep on patting each other on the back for being these like progressive pioneers, the economy here is slipping into a slow motion freefall. We are hemorrhaging jobs, we're hemorrhaging talent, and we're hemorrhaging new investment. And the people in charge, they're just too wrapped up in ideology to even notice what's happening in their backyard. I think that what is happening, and I'm going to share these reports with you, this is honestly the most predictable result of a decades-long liberal one-party government gone completely unchecked. We are watching Massachusetts fall behind because Beacon Hill prioritizes their own agendas over working families. They impose mandates that ignore real-world consequences, and between the legislature and legacy media here, they literally have the majority of the population completely brainwashed. Completely. You know this. I know this. And the fact is, the voters, we never asked for skyrocketing taxes. We never asked for skyrocketing energy bills. We never asked for housing shortages. We never asked for prioritizing illegal immigrants over our own citizens, or for policies written to impress activists rather than serve its own Commonwealth. And meanwhile, take a look at other states. Other states are thriving. They're cutting the taxes, they're building homes, and they are creating jobs. So instead of, learning from the other states that are getting it right, our own politicians are doubling, if not tripling down on these ideologies that they label progress. This is not progress. This is like some form of political malpractice. That's what it is. I know it, you know it, we all know it. So guess what? Today, I'm going to talk about some of the real data, and the reasons that Massachusetts is so damn lost, okay? I'll link these reports too in the description. So, this report is from the Pioneer Institute. I went over this report over the last few days with a fine-tooth comb, and here's what I found. From 2020 to 2024, Massachusetts private sector's GDP per capita grew just 12.5%. Now, you may be wondering, well, what the hell does that mean? To put things into perspective, the national average is 13.3%. So yes, we are below the national average. But then I'd like to look at other states. What are other states doing? And if you look to states like Florida, states like Texas, which, by the way, are often mocked by the elites here in the Northeast, they posted growth rates of 26% and 22.3%. Jesus, even North Carolina is at 17.4%. These aren't just competitors anymore. These states and other growing states, there are replacement. And what's worse is we used to be one of the fastest growing economies in the nation, ranked 4th by 2020. Today, we've plummeted to 28th, okay? And this isn't just a missed opportunity. This is a crisis. And the losses here, they're real. Massachusetts is one of only four states that actually lost private sector jobs since 2020. That's not a slowdown. That is called a reversal. We've lost ground in key industries, from retail to manufacturing to professional services. And the common thread here, by the way, isn't some global economic force, okay? You want to know what it is? It's us. Period. Hands down. Our housing market is a complete disaster. Zoning laws are a disaster. Permitting is a disaster. Local resistance is a disaster. And state level inaction, it's really created a crisis that's pricing these families out of here. They're pricing professionals out of here, and they're even pricing businesses out of here, or businesses are not moving here to begin with. There's not enough supply when it comes to the housing, and what is available is completely unaffordable. I talk to teachers, to nurses, to cops, young professionals, and guess what? They're all finding it harder and harder and harder to stay here. So guess what? They leave. And our high taxes, that only makes things worse here, because Massachusetts has some of the highest income and corporate taxes in the entire country. And then you add in, let's say, bloated fees and regulations, and you get a business climate that actively punishes growth within the state. That is what's happening here. Startups, they're not even launching here anymore. They're leaving. Families are not planting their roots here. They are pulling them out. That is what's happening. And meanwhile, these other states, they have lower taxes. They have fewer regulations. They have these, pro-growth policies. They are all winning. And this is not theoretical. It's happening completely across the board. And here's a perfect example of this, all right? Look at California. This is another deep, deep blue state, crazy liberal state with world-class institutions. And guess what? They had a mass exodus problem as well. Between 2020 and 2023, California lost over 433,000 residents. They also lost over 200 companies, including Tesla. They left. Chevron left. Palantir left. They're all gone. They moved out. The cost of housing is over 2.5 times the national average. Their political response? Raise taxes, more mandates, and blame everybody but themselves. Now, I want to ask you, does that sound familiar to you? Does it? It sure does to me. Another example is New York, and it's absolutely no better. The state lost over 336,000 people since 2020. The middle-class families, guess what? They're moving out, and they're leaving New York, and they're leaving cities like Buffalo as well for places with lower costs and more freedom. People want to have freedom, and I feel this is a massively lacking thing here. Every single year, we're losing and losing more and more freedom, right? Illinois, that's Boston Mayor Michelle Wu's home state, suffering the same exact fate as well as these other deep blue states. Illinois, what was it? That state, they imposed nearly 50 tax and fee increases, I was reading, since 2010. And the result is a steady flight of millionaires and business owners. They leave. They're leaving. The wealth is fleeing and going to other states. The growth is dying as well. All three of these states, just like Massachusetts, are dominated by entrenched Democratic leadership. And in each one, the same exact problem plays out. They have higher taxes. They have excessive regulation. They have housing restrictions. And they prioritize their own ideologies outside what the rest of the country wants. And the crazy thing here, guys, when you think about it, is that the belief, and this is what they think, that the belief that more government and more layered bureaucracy is the solution to the problems that they created. But it's only creating more problems. They're fixing it until it's broken. And Massachusetts, they're walking down the same exact path. Yes, that's how it is. And if you look at when I was looking at these charts, when you look at the professional, scientific, the technical service sectors, which are long considered a engine of our innovation and our innovative economy, they've lost 6.6% of its national share between 2020 and 2024. That's catastrophic. And meanwhile, Florida gained 10.6%. Texas was 12.2%, and North Carolina was around 12% as well. So they're not just like gaining on us, they're passing us. This is a problem. And still, Beacon Hill, they are completely asleep at the wheel here. There's no doubt that Governor Maura Healey, I will be fair here, there's no doubt that she inherited a fragile economy. But they already had those metrics. They already know that this was happening. So while she did inherit that, they still decided to double down on policies that already failed. More regulation, more bureaucracy, and more spending. The Goto Default is to blame. The Goto Default is to blame the federal administration in Washington. They are busy pointing to NIH cuts, to interest rates, and to global instability, right? That's what's happening. Everybody is pointing the blame at everybody else. But this is not an excuse. And the reason it's not an excuse is because these things affect every single state. But the difference is that other states have adapted. They deregulated. They cut taxes. They move fast. Massachusetts did what it always does. They appointed a new commission, they issued a report, and they kicked the can down the road. Everybody's pointing the fingers at the federal administration. It's just not the case here, okay? You got to put things into perspective. People need to wake the hell up. And let's not kid ourselves here. This is about a political philosophy. And again, when you look at states like Florida, Texas, and North Carolina, their leadership, I would think, probably trust the private sector to drive growth. They are more than likely prioritizing economic freedom and individual responsibility and some flexibility between businesses coming and business growth. This is what works. But in Massachusetts, the prevailing belief, this is how it goes. The prevailing belief is that growth comes from government. That's a huge problem. When you have more programs, more rules, more oversight, how are things going to reverse an economic decline? It's not working. It has not been working. It never has. And now we are seeing the consequences of this. Families are moving to states that offer better quality of life, that offer more affordable homes, and more opportunities. This is very simple, okay? This is very simple. Even when you look at businesses are relocating and they're going to places where taxes are low, permitting is faster, and the government isn't a constant obstacle. The data is clear, and it should be humiliating is what it should be. And again, I'll link you these reports. But really, what's most amazing to me here is that Massachusetts, when you think about it, okay, we have some unmatched assets here. Think about it like this. We have the universities. We have incredible hospitals. And obviously, we have a skilled workforce. But none of that matters if we regulate innovation into paralysis and tax productivity into some level of exile. This isn't about economics. It's about values. That's where it starts. Massachusetts used to be a place where hard work led to opportunity, where small businesses, they could thrive, and where communities, like, they built themselves up without having to wait for handouts. But that culture has been eroded by like these years upon years of top-down government that sees the private sector as a problem and not a partner. We need a massive regulatory overhaul here. We really do. We need to cut the red. I've talked about this before. We need to cut the red tape, fast track development, and reform some of these zoning laws and slash these business taxes. More importantly, our spending, it's out of control. We need to freeze spending until we can get our fiscal house in order. We need to stop the handouts, and we need to provide charity to the people who helped build this state, not people that just got here. I said this on X the other day. When does the humanitarian effort, when does that start at home? Really, we should collaborate and empower the private sector to create, to build, and to grow. And above all else, we need accountability. Accountability at Beacon Hill. We should have answers for this decline, not some excuse. We should have answers for the lost jobs. We should have answers for the families moving out or the families being priced out. And we should have answers for the investors who took their money elsewhere. Why do we not want answers on these things? Think about it. For the students, think about students. For students that even graduate here, they get educated here, and then they leave. And also, and finally, I would say for the 72% audit we voted for, I'll sneak that one in there too. Think about it. These people, they do not care about us. Their priorities, they are completely out of whack. They're backwards. And we, the citizens here, we've become irrelevant. This should be a wake-up call for the voters here, for the business owners here, and for everyday citizens. The same progressive playbook that wrecked California, it drove the middle class out of New York, and it hollowed out Illinois. It's alive and well, and it's right here in our backyard. And guess what? We are getting the same results. The stagnant growth, the runaway costs, the vanishing opportunities, it's all here. It's really no longer bad policy. It's a betrayal of the people who built this state to begin with, right? Change is absolutely necessary. And this is what I want to end with, okay? Change is necessary, but it's not going to happen overnight, okay? It won't happen overnight. And it won't be solved by just flipping a few seats in the next election. Elections matter, no doubt about it. But the real change, I really feel like it needs to start at home. It starts with you guys. It starts with your voice. We need to pull back the curtain, and we need to stop pretending everything is fine while our communities fall apart. All these communities, there's a huge majority of these communities here that are behind on budget. They're looking for overrides. I wrote an article on Substack about that. And I think the fact is, you can't be scared of being ostracized. We need to be louder, and we need to be more relentless than they are. You know, whether you're a parent or a business owner or a taxpayer or a student that's just trying to plan your future, you guys got to speak up, okay? You got to see throughout this veil that this state puts up. You need to talk to your neighbors, and really, you need to call out the nonsense when you see it. Because guess what? Silence is exactly what these people are counting on. That is what they are hoping for. It's unbelievable to me. And that's why it's going to take significantly longer than just 2026 to make real changes here. Again, I've talked about this once before. It's chipping away. You need to go out and vote, and you need to put yourself in a position where you're not scared to voice your opinion. That's it. I've lost, clients and friends, some, from doing this, but I've gained more than I've lost, right? You guys could do the same thing as well, right? If people are more concerned about your politics or your ideologies than their friendship or your business or whatever, they have their priorities mixed up. And I think the fact is everybody has been pigeonholed into thinking this. But guess what? If we continue down that same path, we're not going to get anywhere. We're going to be in the same exact place 10 years, 12 years, 16 years from today. So please, for the love of God, I know you guys are good. You guys are great. But for the love of God, don't be scared to speak your mind. All right, that's all I got for today's video. Again, I'll leave a links to what I went over. I didn't want to share my screen and go through all of that because it was a little bit confusing, a lot of charts. But if you're interested, I'll leave them in the description below. That's it for today's video, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.